Good afternoon, and welcome to Spirit Speaks on the World Today. I'm Reverend Jim Webb, the author of several books, including The Soul of Prosperity, Prosperity from A to Z, 30 P's to Prosperity, and Create Your Self Manifesting Vision Board. I also serve as the senior minister of the Tacoma Metaphysical Chapel in Silver Spring, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C., and I am a teacher, a healer, an intuitive counselor and coach, and I channel. I channel a group of energies who want to be known as the masters of planetary healing and transformation. I've been working with them for over 25 years. And their role is to help us in our healing and transformation so that we can be, as God created us, channels for God's love and light on the earth, to anchor that light, to anchor that healing, so that the planet can transform. So, what I'll do very briefly is I will tend to go out, and the guides that I mentioned will work through me. They will use my vocabulary, the images that I have stored in the card catalog called my mind, my motor skills, and they will send energy through me to use these things in order to convey to you the information that is useful for you so that you can support the planet and so that you can have the guidance that you need to navigate these very challenging times. So, when I go out, one of the things that you may find is that as the energy courses through me, my body is solid. The energy is light electromagnetic energy. And as it moves through my body, you might find certain pockets of resistance. So you might find me rocking, or you might find my third eye blinking, or just like the Quakers or Shakers who used to also wait for the Holy Spirit, then they'd start quaking or shaking, you may sense me shuddering. And that's just the solid body's resistance to electromagnetic energy in the same way that a copper wire has resistance to the electromagnetic energy moving through it. So you have to ground it and wrap it in rubber so that the heat doesn't cause a fire. But this is a wonderful heat. I tend to go into a state of euphoria. So, with that, I want to introduce my producer, the Reverend Michael Mangus, who's going to help us with any questions you may have or any comments you may have. And I want you to be prepared to ask the masters any questions you have about what they cover. And Michael will help us with that process. Hi, Michael.
Well, good evening, Reverend Jim, and also to the masters. It's really good to be here this evening. And if you could, please put your questions in the comments, and the earlier the better so that we can get to them. We try to limit this to around an hour. So if you do have a question, especially something concerning the news or something concerning what is going on in the United States or even again in other countries, please put it into the comments and we will relay it to Reverend Jim. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Michael. And with that, I'm going to go out. Greetings. It is our honor and pleasure to work with you in this way at this time. We would suggest, first of all, that you take a moment and breathe. Just breathe. And feel a sense of peace and calm falling over you. And breathe. And breathe. And as you breathe and as you feel the peace of God, allow the peace of God to pour into you, as well as God's vision of an earth in harmony. Just breathe this in. Just breathe in a sense of peace and harmony within you. No matter what happens outside in your world, outside of your body, outside of your realm of physical control and experience, you have the peace of God. Breathe this in. Feel the peace of God welling up in your heart from your abdomen, from your solar plexus. Feel your heart opening to this wondrous peace. Allow your shoulders to relax in peace. Breathe in the peace of God. Breathe in the peace of God. And as you breathe this in, we would suggest that you work once again with the idea we offered you previously. I am safe in the world I create with God. I am safe in the world I create with God. I am safe in the world I create with God. Just breathe this in. I am safe in the world I create with God. Now, as you breathe this in, send this idea, this energy, this current to the Israelis, the Palestinians, the Iranians. You are safe. You are safe in the world you create with God. Your highest self, your light self, envelops these regions of your planet with light. You are safe in the world you create with God. Include what you call Russia and the Ukraine as well, and North Korea. And just breathe and send this energy to what you call the hot spots on your planet. God needs you to do this. Just breathe. Good. And just send more and more round of healing grace and energy to these hot spots, letting the beings know that you are safe, you are safe, you are safe. Surrounding these beings with the love of God that would cause them to remember their divine status, their holy experience, their wholeness as beloveds of God. Cause them to know they are safe, O God. You may use that prayer if you choose. Cause them to know they are safe, O God. Cause them to know they are safe, O God. Cause them to know they are safe, O God. Good. And breathe. Good. And we draw your attention to these areas on your planet, for your healing power has grown substantially, and you must never underestimate the light God has placed within you, that like a diamond captures the light from source, magnifying it in its beauty, its power, its effectiveness, and sending it on the earth where it needs to go. So do not underestimate the power of this exercise, and we would ask you to specifically focus on Israel and the Iranians and the Palestinians and focus on healing peace, healing peace, healing peace. For there are two things happening simultaneously that are related. There are peace talks and talks of a ceasefire that are rather tenuous given the other tensions. However, what we see is the idea of these negotiations circumventing the need for a more destructive escalation. So, as we see it now, the quiet diplomacy between the heads of state, these beings are looking for a de escalatory way out in the form of a longer term ceasefire. And there is a desire and a need to convince a certain Bibi that the goal has been accomplished to the degree that it can, and the cost of more involvement far exceeds the incremental benefit of more involvement. It is time for this being to be convinced that they're that they are approaching a point of no return with devastating consequences for all. And the light you offer is a light wave upon which this information can come. And so we see that others are getting creative ideas on how to de escalate the situation and bind that de escalation to a ceasefire agreement in the short term. So take a moment to send energy to this. Good. Good. Now we would turn attention to your domestic situation, and a question on the tongues of many humans is, can the momentum of the newest candidate be sustained? And the answer is a resounding yes. The channel has in its vocabulary the idea of a snowball effect or the bandwagon effect, where in your cartoon folklore, a snowball would roll downhill, collecting more snow and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. This imagery, this image, this idea is an energy trajectory that we see for this candidate at this point. From now until the convention, there will be excitement. At the convention, there will be an introduction of this being to the country in a way that is perceived to be extremely favorable. And this being will not look back, meaning that this being will leverage this momentum into the fall season and will, at this moment, because these are simply forecasts, at this moment will likely continue to ride a wave of energy and enthusiasm through November. And so we see the other candidate angry, confused, hurt, not knowing how to yet navigate this relatively new entrant. And so we see at this time many things being tried and many ideas being posted and different approaches in different venues. But in human terms, this being is unable to land a punch, meaning that this being is unable to articulate a clear, succinct message as to why their opponent is not fit. For, of course, there is no message to convey that, for it is not true. But this is the challenge that the being has, the struggle, almost as if the being is outside when a party is being held inside, with the being's face pressed against the glass. This symbology is indicative of someone who is seeing something happen and is unable to ride the wave or stop the wave or in any way blunt the impact of the wave. This is the being that you see, and the being, in a sense, has dug himself into a rut as it relates to campaigning and the like, and will be less effective than you think in opposing a certain being, another being running for office. So, with that, you can breathe even easier. And we hear your question, but what about the October revelations? As we see it, the trajectory is set and solid by October, and that is what we see. Take a moment to breathe this in, one and all. Good, good. And we would open this session to any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Masters. And I think we've already answered Jane's Bat's question, which is, do you foresee a Middle East ceasefire breakthrough? And are there any more comments that you would like to add to that?
Yes, in the channel's consciousness, we find a visual and energetic image of very busy hands knitting a sweater in hyperspeed. And the symbolism here is that there are many hands busy working furiously to craft a ceasefire that will encompass the the this region and avoid a further escalation of war. The ceasefire is actually simply a fig leaf, a face saving mechanism designed to help all parties save face and de escalate a very volatile situation. The a being who is supporting those working on the document is saying it's about 80% there. It may be revealed in the next 3 to 5 days that such an agreement is being worked on or hammered out. And by the time it is reported, it is possible that the agreement will already be in place or agreed to, save ceremonial signing. So there is a strong possibility that such an agreement would blunt the impact of certain recent military actions and keep them from escalating. Now, you might ask, how does the more clear prospect for a war that could become global, how does that impact markets and economies and the like? We would offer to you that certain countries are more weary of war and more spent in terms of resources than you might imagine. For example, in what you call Russia, we would use human figures of speech here. In Russia, you might find an image, as we find an image in the channel's mind, of a plane and workers working on the plane using paper clips and scotch tape to repair the plane. What this means is that their treasury, despite outward bravado, their economy, despite outward bravado, and their manufacturing base and their military support base is struggling and weary to the degree of, in several weeks, it is possible that Putin begins to explore ways out. For the trajectory at this moment is unsustainable for much longer. The forecasts we see being shown to Putin indicate that the current situation is only somewhat stable for the next 6 months. And then we would use the human term, the house of cards collapses upon itself, and the opposition grows louder as this being becomes less engaged. So we see hope in the possibilities for Russia, hope due to necessity, because the economy cannot sustain itself much longer in this warlike setting. And this is what we see for this country. Now, in the Middle East, We see that the Israeli military, which was always designed to be reservists, not career combatants, this energy is being strained as well for the same reasons. And leaders understand intrinsically, inherently, that the way to stay in power is not to preside over failure. And so these beings, in human terms, are eyeing the exit doors, seeing how a face saving exit can be made that saves face on all sides. And there is a great deal of energy and creativity going into addressing these two hotspots. As we see it, and this is a likely possibility, it has not moved to the realm of probability, but as we see it, there is a likely possibility that by the end of September, certain issues will be ironed out and there will be clear sailing in October, which gets us to another round of revelations and a relatively impervious candidate who wears pantsuits. At that time, the most withering and blistering attacks will have been lodged to little consequence, and momentum for this being in this movement of energy picks up. Now, the other contestant, the other being who is running, we see a being becoming hoarse, meaning losing words, not able to speak, stuck, and unconvincing. As we see the energy trajectory for this being, there is a more rapid diminishment of energy and a more rapid descent into ineffective energies. Now, the party may try to put forth a strong face, but there is an energy of deep, deep frustrative fatigue, fatigue born of frustration and a recognition of a certain inevitability, not in terms of the election, but in terms of inevitability of certain other longer term issues, such as litigation in courts. And the being's energy, as we see it, becomes depleted, very depleted. And so the being's effectiveness on the campaign trail becomes very limited. And so these are the probabilities at this time. And by the time certain opposition research on the candidate wearing pantsuits is ready to be aired, it will have minimal impact. The October surprise will not be effective on this being, is what we see. The being wearing pantsuit. So, is there perhaps another question?
Yes, Masters, we welcome this evening Regina Bradboy, who went ahead and shared. She says, how can I use my writing and communications talents to support a positive election outcome?
Yes, we would work with this. We would work with this individually, and we would work for this with this for the greatest good of all. By writing your vision of America and posting it in social media, this offers a beacon of light for what you are for. And this is important, and we would reiterate something from a prior broadcast. It is, yes, important to inform others of the stakes of the election. And it is useful to inform them from a very empowering perspective, where you empower them to remember and realize that they too are gods and that they too can create the world they want to see. And when enough beings come together to create a world they want to see, that world has no choice but to be made manifest. So you write about the world you want to see and encourage others to do so as well. And we see that there is a great energy of others being moved into engagement here. So, by writing what country you want to see, what you want to see, what qualities you want to see in your country, and publishing this, you gain the attention and the eyes and the awareness of many who would have longer discussions on this and focus on what you want, not what you abhor. In other words, focus on what you adore and not what you abhor. Focus on what you adore and not what you abhor. So, as you focus in a forward way, such as this, you can use your writing skills. There will be other social interaction coming from this in the form of book club activity and professional exposure to those with political office and community involvement here. And so we see that by working with writing in this way, you would be very effective. Do you understand this? Good. Is there perhaps another question?
Yes, Masters, we have another question from Jane Batt, who says, Hi, when I hear new outrageous ideas, I feel fear again. How do I maintain peace?
We would work with this. And we would work with this in the following way for you and for all. There is actually more peace, what we would call peace particles in the environment. For example, when developing estimates for how much of the COVID virus is in the population, there are analysis of wastewater is done. For that is an indicator of how much of the virus is among the population. We offer you this example because there are actually more peace particles in the world than you see. You see, your news media has a business model to sow that has the effect of sowing anxiety and exaggerating certain risks because those exaggerated risks cause people to watch their programs. So you are getting a distorted energy and information around what is happening to create more peace on your earth. You have moved closer to this goal as a humanity than you think, and you see your news media exaggerating certain risks, and this paints a more dire picture of the world than is true at this time. Yes, of course, we see things from our perspective, and we see what the channel is fond of calling the happy outcome. And so it is, yes, it is easy for us to say this when you are still living through what you can see with your physical eyes, which, and your news media exaggerating it, does not enable you to see the preponderance of peace particles on the earth that you breathe every day, that you ingest every day, that you become every day. These particles go to every being on the earth who is ready and willing to awaken. And if not, they come to you that you might share and anchor this energy on the earth that it might go wherever it is needed. So, the point of this is that there is a great deal more peace in your atmosphere than you think because your news media distorts the potentials for war. And you see an example of this today. For in your news, there was a reduction in certain stock values, and the your media is exaggerating this to the point of crying recession when this is simply a momentary dip that will be corrected shortly. So, this gives you an example of how your media might exaggerate the fear filled negative, causing you to be blind to all the particles of hope that you breathe in with each breath. Take a moment to receive healing. Is there perhaps another question?
Yes, Masters, we want to acknowledge Godfrey's mention this evening. Please hold Sudan in prayer and peace, and we will do that. And also that Joel writes this evening, he says, what can I do to minimize my ego and avoid ego fights?
We would work with this in the context of this forum, and we would explain this in the context of this forum. And we would actually offer you a visualization in the context of this forum. You see, what you see all around you are ego fights. The ego of one political party versus the ego of another. The ego of one group of beings in the Middle East versus the egos of other political organizations. The ego of certain warriors and certain victims. The ego of your Soviet Union versus the ego of the Ukraine. So, what you see is the mass magnification of what you feel inside as the ego and its propensity to fight. How can you address this individually, and how can you all address this globally? Sit with God and let God tell you. This technique of sitting in silence and inviting the light and the love and the healing of God into your space of prayer and meditation causes that light, as you do this regularly and repeatedly, sitting in the light of God causes that light to enter into your mind, into your heart, into your throat chakra, so that ego based hurtful things would not be said. When you sit in the light of God in this way and call forth the harmony of God within you, so that your ego does not try to shut it down as something weird or something uncomfortable or something to be afraid of, for the ego is afraid of its annihilation. It does not realize that it is simply being repurposed. So you sit with God and let God tell you. Let God tell you who you are. You are God's beloved. Let God tell you about the world. It is a blank canvas upon which you can paint your prosperity. Let God tell you about God. God is an energy of love that is ever present, ever willing to serve as you open to it. And as you sit with God and let God tell you, your highest God self emerges. And as you all do this regularly, and you bring others into your space. You might bring certain world leaders into your space that they may sit with God and find that place within them that has deep love for all humanity despite their war status. Sit with God and let God tell you. Bring others into the space. Bring images of your planet into the space. Bring images of cooperation into the space, bring images of nonviolence into the space. And by doing so, you release the ego's insistence on war and you open to the God self's insistence on peace. This is what you do individually, and this is what you do collectively. For individually, as you shed resentments and as you shed the ego's desire to criticize, and as you shed doubt about your fullness, your okayness, your oneness with God, as you share with God this energy, and as you become this energy, your ego feels less attacked, less vulnerable, less needing to defend itself, and less willing to get into ego fights. And this is what you do individually. And as you do it individually, you do it collectively, bringing world leaders into your space and imagining that you are all naked and vulnerable, and that the light of God shines upon you, and that the light of God heals you, and that the light of God takes away shame and feelings of inadequacy. And as you do so, this has profound effects on the world and its willingness to be in harmony. Is there perhaps another question?
Yes, there is, Masters, from Jane Batt. She writes this evening, if the snowball could be large enough to increase the magnitude of the wind, that would be helpful with the election outcome challenges. Is that possible?
In other words, a derivation of a prior question, is it possible that the margin of one candidate's victory be large enough to make the results uncontestable? That is something that has yet to be worked out. However, what we do see as we look at all the differing possibilities and certain probabilities, we do see that certain legal, military, or militia type responses will fall on a very skeptical public and will not develop public traction. So we do not see the threat of a replay of a prior election or mass confusion and violence or the belief in a certain outcome contrary to truth. We do not see this occurring for, as we may have stated before, Americans have seen this movie already. And this is what we would say. Now, will there be, we would never predict the outcome, although the outcome is quite possible. The margin of victory, it is quite possible that it be convincing as opposed to razor thin. These are forecasts based on this moment. Now, whether or not the margin of victory or even the victory, there is not an appetite for the same type of protestations as before. For America has seen this movie already. And this is what we would say. Take a moment, one and all, to breathe. Breathe in light, breathe in healing for you and the planet. See and sense your planet bathed in the light of healing. Good. Good. Is there perhaps another question or two before we close?
Masters, we do not have any other questions. Are there some parting words that you would like to leave with us?
Yes. Hold fast to the vision God has given you for the earth. We have worked with you on creating with God's vision for the earth through you. Consult that prior transmission. Hold fast to this vision. Work with this vision. Allow this vision to become your energy. And this is how the particles of this vision then go into the Earth's energetic atmosphere, that vision may be closer to what is created, that what is created would be closer to this vision. That is what you can do to continue to support light as light supports you in creating the world you desire. And this is what we would say to you. Take a moment to receive a final blessing. Be blessed and in God forever. Hey, Michael.
Hey, welcome back.
Mhm.
So we have news this evening.
Yes.
Jim's new book, Forgive
Yes.
Your Way to Prosperity, will be available here really soon, and especially on his birthday coming up. So just to let you know that that'll be available on Amazon. Jim's new book, Forgive Your Way to Prosperity. If you'd like to get in contact with Reverend Webb, you can do that at his web address, which is uh, revjimwebb.com, or you can go ahead and you can call him also at area code 202 253 6009. It's 202 253 6009. And Reverend Jim, you are about to announce your fall classes.
Yes. Dun 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 drum roll. I'll be announcing them this week. And I'll amend the announce I'll when we put out this recording, I'll put a link in the comment section of the recording announcing the classes. So folks who are here, please share the recording if you choose. Uh, you can always find it on the New Thought Media Network. You can always find it on my Facebook page. You can always like it, share it from there. You can also subscribe. That way you'll know when we're doing another of these. As we go into the summer travel season, we may miss a few. So subscribe, and that way you'll know when we're doing one. Okay?
And also, if you go on Reverend Jim Webb's YouTube page, also, that's also archived there.
Yes. So
So, any final comments here, sir?
that's it. I want to thank everybody, and thank you, Michael. Thank you very much, Reverend Michael. Have a wonderful evening.